enjoyed them. So I think like I've said already that I anticipate Wind and Truth being my least favorite, not because of what I read in the spoiler chapters, but because I tend not to like the last book in a series. There have been some absolutely amazing moments in the preview chapters so far. Some like really, really fantastic. I think some of Brandon's best writing. There have also been some moments that made me question what Brandon was thinking, which we went into more last week. So there was that. But like overall, I've been really enjoying it, and yeah, like I said, some very high highs and some very interesting other things.
I think that's totally fair. I come away with the review that this, more than any other book, feels like the falling action of the previous book that's having to be resolved, and then we're immediately jumping forward into what's to come. And so there is a little bit of the first few chapters where you're like, okay, yes, especially we've had this conversation before. The super fans who have been thinking about this nonstop for 3 years are like, yes, Brandon, we know that they've got to go there to the spiritual realm or whatever. We know we got to get Bottom Mishram. We know we got to, Zeth's got to go to Shinovar and like all the things from Rhythm of War that were set up. But you have to put these things into the book for people who have not put all the dots together and it like surmised exactly what's going to happen. And the way that that's happened and the scenes that we've gotten with the different characters has been super fun. It is something that I want to watch more on a reread for. Is it reading it week to week that makes the narrative feel a little bit different than previous Stormlight books? Is it just post Secret Project Brandon, where he's like writing a little bit differently than the previous books? I'm not 100% sure yet. I will say that as we're transitioning to the end of these 12 to 13 chapters, it is feeling more and more like a traditional Stormlight book ramping into the adventure. It's just that it's happening at a different pace than most of the previous Stormlight books. Whereas in the past, we have like the calm before the storm that's like multiple chapters. It feels like now the calm before the storm is 1 or 2 chapters and then go.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think of like traditional like plot arcs, so you start with like exposition, you go into rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. To me, this feels very much like an exposition stage, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. I think that I don't know what people are expecting from a book this massive. There needs to be you need to have set up all the pieces, get everybody where they need to be, wrap up any loose ends. I mean, even in Rhythm of War, I think people don't remember. It's 400 pages in before the invasion happens. Like, there's a lot of chapters of just Kaladin and Teft wandering around the tower and Shallan and Adolin wandering around the tower and going to meetings. A lot of that in the beginning of Rhythm of War. And I think that that's what we're seeing here also. It's a lot of like chess moving pieces. I think, and so I think we're going to get, I think especially now, I don't want to give anything away for the next chapters. I think we're heading into that rising action now, but I think we still have a little bit more, exposition to get through. So just, again, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
We've had some like brilliant moments, but I think everyone needs to like just lower their expectations a little bit. So.
We've only got 10 days.
I know. See, I have a friend who is very worried about this book, and she has like, she said she will not read it until I've read it, and she tells me that Kaladin is okay.
Speaking of spoilers and how they help to enjoy the experience.
Exactly. Bringing it full circle. But she said to me, like, she read some of the preview chapters, and she was like, this doesn't feel urgent enough. We only have 10 days. And I'm like, you can't work that way. It just doesn't. There's no way a Stormlight book could be chapter 1 and Odium arrives. Like, you have to build up a little bit. You have to let it build. This is probably going to be a 1,300 page book. Believe me, there will be action, there will be urgency. Like, I'm not worried. But
yeah. Doesn't Rhythm of War and Oathbringer kind of start? I'm not there in my reread yet, so I have to go back and look at them. But Rhythm of War starts with that rescue mission to get the people back, right? So that's like very in medias res. It's been a year. Let's get caught up. And it's just a different thing to have this book be, it's been 10 minutes. Like it's been maybe, there's the lightest of spoilers. There is a moment where Kaladin finds out he's taking Szeth to Shinovar. Like, we know that. We know that that's the plan, but we get to see Kaladin learn it in real time. And so, yes, it's a totally different setup than the previous books. But I'm loving it so far. And I think that it's going to disappoint people and it's going to thrill people. Like, that's just the nature of the climax of the first 5 books of the Stormlight Archive. It wouldn't be the end of a 5-book series. It wouldn't be a Stormlight book if it didn't disappoint some people and leave other people just thrilled with it.